she's literally not watching this great show because of this. Hello, I'm Jenna, and welcome to another WWM Productions video, and today, as you can tell from the title, I am reviewing the second season of The Mandalorian, a Disney Plus exclusive show, and I watched the first season of The Mandalorian last summer, just on a whim, because I had an account and I was like, well, this exists, guess I'll watch it, and I actually really enjoyed it. And I should preface this video by saying that I'm not, like, a super Star Wars fan. I enjoy the movies, I always have, but, like, I wouldn't say I'm someone who feels, like, such an affinity towards them. So if I mess up on, like, the lore or, like, the facts or anything throughout this video, I just watched this stuff because it's good, like this review will show you. So, thesis statement of this video is Mandalorian Season 2, good. So there were 3 major parts of the first season that I was really impressed with, and these thoughts I had kind of carried over into the second season, and those will kind of make up the 3 major parts of this video, and that is the story, the music, and the themes of the show. And I guess I'll just jump right into it, and if you haven't seen anything about Star Wars, you'd probably still like this show. It might take a little bit of, like, figuring things out, but one of the things I really liked about this show and the story is that it functions almost like an anthology series. It does have kind of a greater plot. It essentially just follows this guy who is, let's just call him a space cowboy, because this show is a space western, and you know what, we have space cowboy here. So he goes along and he's a bounty hunter, and one of his jobs that pays so much is he has to kill this person. This person turns out to be a child, and if you've been on the internet, even in Iota, you know that there is this thing called Baby Yoda, and Baby Yoda is the bounty that he has to kill. And the Mandalorian decides that he can't do it, he can't kill the child. And at the end of the first season, spoilers, but if you haven't watched the show, I recommend going to do so. And then coming back and watching this video. But at the end of the first season, he goes and he learns that there are other people like the child, because the child turns out to be Force sensitive, which is essentially you can be a Jedi because you can do mind tricks. So that's where the second season picks up. The second season is the Mandalorian trying to find a way to contact the Jedi in order to deliver this child, but of course he grows more affectionate of the child and sees it as his child, and they kind of develop a father-son relationship throughout the show, and then things are complicated with the Empire, I think, bad people getting in the way, let's just say that, and then there are other Mandalorians who are different from the titular Mandalorian, and they're trying to bring Mandalore back, because galaxy is kind of in ruins, because, you know, politics. You can see I really don't know anything that goes on, like, greater universe. I don't even know where this is on the timeline. I was very confused, but it doesn't even matter, because the story in this show does not overly rely on having to know everything else, because like I said, this show is essentially an anthology series, which I really liked. The story in this show is fairly simple if you're just someone like me who's just a casual viewer, and I really appreciated that, because I still know some things about the greater Star Wars galaxy, but you don't need to know really anything to still enjoy this show. It's really fantastic. You can just watch it for cool action sequences, or you can enjoy the story, or you can be a total Star Wars nerd and get any sort of enjoyment out of it. I think that's just a really great thing. For me, I kind of fall into the category of just enjoying the developing story of the bond between the Mandalorian and the child, because I think I've probably said it on this channel before, but like that trope, I guess, of older, world-wearied traveler who's on their own, comes into the same path as a young, hopeful, yet still kind of battered child, and they have to join together to get somewhere, and they wind up developing a deeper relationship. Like, that's my jam. So I really fell into the story of this show very quickly, and I was very excited to see it continue. Watching this story and seeing our 2, like, main characters interact, and I just enjoyed every kind of set piece that this show comes on, but because it's an anthology show, some of the episodes can be a lot weaker than others, and like this show started out really well in the beginning, but then kind of in the middle it dipped a little bit and there were some episodes I wasn't as interested in. But then the ending is just wild. Like, the finale of this show, like the last 2 episodes, so good. This show, like, got me really invested in the beginning, just as I started to maybe not lose interest, but get a little, like, weaker on how I felt. It just roared back at me, and I was like, okay, this is great. Overall, the story-wise, I'm trying not to be too spoilery, but it was just really great. I enjoyed all of the characters. It doesn't overly rely on fan service in any way, because the first season was really popular, and of course it uses implements of the first season, but really you can take any episode from season 1 and season 2, and if you have never watched any of the rest of the show, you could probably pick any episode and watch it and still enjoy it. You might be confused on like a couple things, but at the end of the day, you would still enjoy it. And I think that's really great that you can have each episode essentially be its own self-contained story that also overlaps into other episodes. And this show is also not very long. It's only 8 episodes. None of the episodes are more than like an hour, not even. I just think it's great that this show like knows what it wants to do and then does it and doesn't really care about how long it takes. It's just, okay, this is the episode, this is the story we're telling, okay, we're done. The other side of that is, because I did lose interest in the middle of the season, there were a couple things that didn't feel like they had quite planned out so well, and as I watched, sometimes I'd be like, I feel like we didn't really think this through too much, but I'm not trying to sit here and claim that this is a perfect show. I just think this is a super fun show to watch. Show kind of slaps, if you will, if you'll go with that lingo for a moment. So I really enjoyed this story. It was just a fun show to watch, even if you were just watching it like as like a popcorn show or you were really invested in it. There's enough to enjoy here for anyone. Number 2 is the music in this show, because if you've been watching this channel, which you should have been, you know that Ava always calls me out for being a film music nerd. And I feel kind of bad. I feel kind of like a fake one. I am not super music literate. I mean, I've been playing trumpet since like 4th grade, but like even then, like once you get at me with like more complicated or not even complicated music theory, I kind of start to lose it. I try to keep up on things, but like sometimes the greater effect is not lost on me, but I can't explain to you. Music in Star Wars has always been super iconic, and people have picked over it for ages because John Williams' opus with the main series of movies has been around for so long, and they've just been a constant good thing. Except for maybe the last movie, but that's something else. So, one of the things I was most curious about with this show was the musical identity, because I was just interested how, one, it would translate into a TV show, because TV show scores can be very different with the scheduling and what they're allowed to do and like how it all has to be put together, and also just how much would we rely on John Williams' just catalog. And this show kind of said, none at all. At least with the first season. The first season they really didn't do anything, which I was really happy with because it really set this show apart and said we don't have to rely on anyone, we're just going to make our own thing. And the score in the first season just, each episode has its own album of music, and if you need something to listen to, put it on. Ludwig Göransson, composer for this show, does a fantastic job. The second season, because the composer knew what people had liked, which is the main theme. The main theme is like maybe 2 minutes, a little less. But there's many different parts to that main theme, and it became very iconic and well-loved with the community. Everyone really loved the main theme. So for the second season, the composer could kind of look at that and be like, oh, well, people really liked it. And this show does a really good job because it uses so much of the main theme, but it uses it in such a unique and creative way with each episode. Because what the composer did for each episode this season is, because it's an anthology series and because you have different storylines and different characters happening all around this same character, the Mandalorian, the composer was able to essentially create different instrument choices and tones for each episode and not make it super jarring because it all uses the main theme and the different parts of it. That was kind of complicated to explain, but here, I'll break it down even simpler. First episode uses a lot of influence to make it sound like a classic Western movie. Another episode uses a lot of synthwave, kind of heavier electronic music to make it seem more like a high space adventure into the Empire evilness. Another episode uses a lot of like high action, high octane sounds to make it more heist-like, and then the finale uses a lot of like almost cyberpunk influence with the inclusion of a lot of different droid enemies, and all of this comes together, and none of it is jarring. It all sounds different, but it all is distinctly The Mandalorian, and I was just in love. There were so many times when I could barely even pay attention to what was happening on screen because I was just listening so intently to the score, and I was like, oh my god, why is this so good? To go back to what I said before with using John Williams' ideas and compositions, this second season did something really interesting, and it uses very little, but it uses just enough to make its point, which I think is really well done, because this second season, we kind of run into some familiar faces throughout the Star Wars universe, which was something I was kind of mixed about. Some of it was done really well, and some of it felt a little off and kind of forced, which has me a little concerned for the rest with the third season that was announced. But I'm still cautiously optimistic because there are so many other good parts of this show, like the score. It's so creative, and it knows exactly if it's going to use something that calls back to the original movies, that it's going to use it incredibly deliberately and in a way that is not overwhelmingly fan service. It tells a very specific idea because it knows that that idea is already represented, and it can be used to as shorthand for the audience that knows what it is, and for the audience that doesn't, it still sounds like a banger, because that's what the soundtrack is. The third part of the slightly chaotic review of a very good show that you should watch is the themes. The themes in this show are pretty cool. The show focuses a lot on the idea of found family, and even more specifically, the idea of parenthood, because the first season kind of shows this guy who is alone, doesn't really have like anyone, like he's isolated completely. Man doesn't really have a lot of friends. Pedro Pascal is kind of all on his own. As the show goes on, he kind of finds a family. This show is like very profoundly the found family trope. As the show goes on, this guy meets more and more of what kind of becomes his family, and he also learns to kind of be a parent and accept this ward that he kind of has, and love the people around him. And the second season kind of continues that, because now he has a family worth protecting and worth going the extra mile for, and we get to see that, and it kind of breaks down some of the walls that this very isolated and stony character has throughout his loneliness. He kind of learns to know what a family is. It's the people you find, it's the people you thought you lost and then rekindle some sort of relationship with, it's the people that you have and then lose. It's all of these different things, and this show knows at the heart of its story that it's about family and parenthood. The theme of family is something that really goes throughout the entire show, and that's just what I take away from it. People could take away something completely different, because this show is that good. All of these themes are present in a show that has just increasingly good action sequences, well done shots, and really compelling stories, and a banger theme still going on about that. But all of this comes together into a slightly flawed but show that always keeps trying to become something better than what it just gave you. And I think that that's really cool. And that's why I like The Mandalorian. I hope this video made sense. To sum it all up, the story is very compelling, and it's just fun to watch. It has great action beats, and comedy, and dialogue, and it's just a fun show to watch that if you haven't seen yet and you have Disney Plus, why not give it a shot? It's pretty enthusiastic about what it does, and it's pretty hard to dislike, even if you want to. The score is amazing. I love it so much. Go listen to it. Go enjoy it in the show. You won't regret it. It's just chef's kiss. 3. This show isn't just an action show. It has a lot to enjoy and to pick apart and muse over, and it's something that I really enjoyed and something that I kind of took things away from. And I think that it would be really interesting if you were to watch it, and I'm curious to see what you think of the show. So leave a comment Leave a like if you want, subscribe to see more, hopefully either more eloquent or just as chaotic reviews as this one, and stay around. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and with that I'm going to say goodbye and thank you for watching.